Oh, Cap, if you only knew how badly we needed you now. Hello everyone and welcome to my movie shelf. My name's Bane and today we're talking some Captain Planet. Where the hell's that new film at? This is one of those properties that's supposedly been in development for decades, yet never actually goes anywhere no matter who tries to bring it back. So let's dive into some of the reasons that made this character so unique and special to children of the 90s. Every hero is only as good as the villains and challenges they overcome on their journey, and Mr. Planet's polar opposite, his reverse Flash if you will, is Captain Pollution. He's basically the same as Planet except on the other side of the scale. Captain Pollution comes from duplicated versions of the Planeteers rings that have been modified into the evil rings of destruction, made by the unnecessarily sexy Dr. Blight for the eco-villains to use. He basically has all the same powers as Captain Planet, and when he's really feeling aggro, he enters an almost Super Saiyan-like state, bulking up for the inevitable throwdown. He's a complete weirdo that as a character could be really fun for an actor to take on and go wild with. Like, come on, just look at this freak enjoying himself a good old-fashioned sludge bath. Blech. His character's power set makes him the perfect nemesis to our main hero. Captain Planet's hypothetical kryptonite is pollution, waste, sludge, radiation, pretty much all the abilities pollution possesses, making him the perfect opponent to use as a test to track Captain Planet's progress and growth as a hero over time. But what makes a good villain? Well, certainly not this, but since I see him being played by Christian Bale in my mind for no real reason at all, you'll have to deal with it. A good villain has a complicated past that often starts out on the side of good and is twisted over time into a more darker image of what they used to be. Sometimes this past is even tied into the hero's own story as well. So using this logic, we make our version of Captain Pollution the former Captain Planet, that after years of fighting toxins is slowly poisoned and morphed into Captain Pollution. One day he goes missing and is believed to have died. His Planeteers are slowly forgotten as time passes and people move on. This would allow us to make the eco-villains and Pollution a version of the Planeteers and Planet from the 90s, and then we make the newer version a more modern take so we can appease both the original fans of the original show and a younger audience fresh to the franchise. Plus, it's a slam dunk way to add tension and history between the heroes and villains. Once it becomes clear that the former Protector has returned as a destroyer, we get a guess who's back type moment. We introduce our new squad of environmental warriors and an updated version of Captain Planet for a new generation, and bam, we got ourselves an ecological showdown for the ages. There's also an eco-villain called Duke Nukem, which throws me off every time, because I instantly think of the one that kicks ass and chews bubblegum. But no, that's not this one. This one looks like if you were to take a pineapple and shove a canister of TMNT ooze right down the center. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more movie and TV related content. If you don't subscribe, there's a small chance the world could end. Well, probably not, but why take the risk? It's just not worth it. Now, you might be asking yourself, who the heck as an actor would want to be part of a Captain Planet movie? Well, you might be pretty surprised by the sheer amount of celebrities that were either substantial characters or had themselves a guest role on the show when it ran back in the 1990s. Starting with a member of the Planeteers themselves, we have the great LeVar Burton. Some of you may know him from Roots or Reading Rainbow, and some of you may know him from Star Trek The Next Generation. He's taken on many respectable roles over the years, and a man trying to help save the planet is just another one of them. Then there's the Earth Spirit Gaia. The way I would describe her is to imagine a version of Sauron and his Rings of Power, but instead of being completely evil, she uses them to help protect the Earth and its inhabitants, with an overseeing soul-type vibe like Zordon from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, sending her group of Planeteers out on a mission like she's Professor X or something. She, like many characters over the run of the series, was voiced by multiple people. Originally, she was voiced by one of LeVar's friends, Whoopi Goldberg, who played Gaia the most out of anyone, but then later on, by the late actress Margot Kidder, that lots of you will know as Lois Lane from Christopher Reeve's Superman films. Then there's Dr. Blight, the angry-ass lady that was responsible for creating the Rings of Destruction that call upon Captain Pollution. And for a moment of time, she was voiced by Meg Ryan that I'm sure most of you have seen in one thing or another. Her sidekick Mal, a malware virus AI entity, was played by the legendary actor Tim Curry, who took over after the original performer passed away. Also, fun fact, Tim was almost cast as the Joker instead of Mark Hamill on Batman the Animated Series. There's even test footage out there of him reading lines. It's pretty cool to see, but I'm glad it was Mark instead. Even Charlie Sheen's father Martin took a turn as an eco-villain, voicing Sly Sludge for multiple seasons, who's an interesting character that in later episodes actually gives up polluting to make money in recycling over mass production. Another one of our bad guys is performed by the iconic voice of Ed Asner. If you don't know who he is, shame on you, since he's been in all kinds of things you've most likely seen. He was the Santa Claus in Elf, he was the old guy in Up. but he will always have a special spot in my heart for his work as J. Jonah Jameson on the 90s Spider-Man animated series. Just go look at his IMDb for yourself, may the man rest in peace. Then there's the odd man known as Zarm, who serves as the opposing spiritual force to Gaia. This is a character that ended up with Malcolm McDowell from Clockwork Orange behind the mic, but at one point earlier in the series was being done by the singer Sting. I think it's safe to say we got a bit of an acting upgrade with this replacement. There was even a guest spot by the T-1000. No, Robert Patrick from Terminator 2 Judgment Day. He has a small role as a professor that the Planeteers talk to during one of their adventures. The internet's favorite elderly rapscallion Jeff Goldblum took a small stint as the eco-villain Verminous Scum, a rat-like humanoid creature. After Jeff left the role, he was replaced by Maurice LaMarche, who you'll likely know as Brain from the Pinky and Brain cartoons. Another actor that was briefly on the show as a professor the heroes come across was the star of Predator 2, Danny Glover. He was also in a ton of other things like the Lethal Weapon series as well, but we're going with Predator 2. And if you weren't satisfied with just one Patrick, how about a Neil Patrick Harris also? Most people these days know him for How I Met Your Mother, but this little guy is always Doogie Howser in my mind. Making a quick appearance as the Planeteer Linka's uncle was the late Phil Hartman. Before his passing, he was a big part of SNL in the early 90s and had spots on lots of different sitcoms like News Radio and even The Simpsons. There was also that guy from Cheers, you know. Cheers guy? Though most people think of him as John Ratzenberger, who voiced one of the sidekicks Rigger for the Evil Guys. The popular late actress Elizabeth Taylor was brought in for a voice as a well-known activist in the fight against a certain health crisis from the late 80s, early 90s that heavily affected the LGBTQ community when they made an episode featuring the topic. For some reason, they even had Vanna White from Wheel of Fortune guest spot as a doctor, though to be fair, she did do some old movies before joining the game show. Though the most unlikely or unusual one of them all was the multimedia conglomerate billionaire Ted Turner, who was responsible for not only starting the network CNN, but was one of the creators of Captain Planet himself, as Ted has been a lifelong environmentalist. There are so many more, including uncredited roles by people like Helen Hunt from Mad About You, Fred Savage from The Wonder Years, Lark, no relation to Jason Voorhees from Saved by the Bell, and John Lovitz from cultural classics like High School High. But none of those side characters matter if we don't have a leading actor capable of the charisma it takes to voice such a role. And for this, we turn to David Coburn. He's been in so many random things over the years, and out of it all, this is easily the one I always go back to. He was also responsible for Captain Pollution as well as Captain Planet. Another fun fact, Dave was not the original choice. A well-known actor was cast and set to record, but shortly before starting, that person pulled out for reasons that I believe are still unknown to this day. Who was this person to which I speak of? That's right, Tom Cruise was originally set to be the person behind Captain's voice, and even though David was the right man for the job, at the end of the day, a small part of me still wonders what it would have been like if Tom had stayed on the project. And for the people that aren't really aware of the types of storylines used on the show, it wasn't just a bunch of sunshine and lollipops for toddlers. Diving into topics like addiction, where one of the Planeteers themselves falls trapped to the substance in question, or like what I mentioned before, they wanted to speak about a large health crisis in that time. There was even an episode where they went into battle against the world's least favorite German soldier. His character design isn't quite exact, but I'm pretty confident you all know who we're talking about here. Also, we get one time where they meet either a future or alternate dimension version of the Planeteers and Captain Planet, when the world is even worse than it already was. It's honestly a shame they didn't get into this further over the series, as it could have been quite interesting to see. The show was created in the early 90s as an effort to help interest the youth in protecting the planet. So after all these years, what kind of impact did it have? Spoiler alert, none. Things are worse than ever before. Why have you forsaken us, Cap? Why? All joking aside, a lot of good has come out of this program, including the Captain Planet Foundation, that's still out there doing what they can to this day. I'll include a link to the site in my description in case you want to go check out what they do or make a donation personally. And then there's the toys, the sweet, beautiful toys. Even one where he has his Iron Man-like armor I always wanted. Story time, kids. Every one of these figures came with a plastic ring based on one of the ones from the show. Now, I had one of these rings as a kid, and they were those ones made of cheap plastic with a small gap in the middle of the band in an effort to make them one size fits all for kids. But those damn things can almost double as crab pincers, so if you get your finger stuck in there, say goodbye, appendage. To this day, I'm grateful I didn't end up with an Assassin's Creed missing finger situation due to this tragic event. The Captain Planet franchise was more than just toys, games, and cartoons, though. It became so popular, even Marvel released a short run for the character that, no joke, I bet would sell out if they ever decided to re-release as a hardcover graphic novel collection. I'll tell you for a fact, I would sure love to get my hands on one. The show's story centers around Gaia, the Earth's spirit, summoning a team of Planeteers together to use her elemental powers and protecting the world against the eco-villains, sending them out on different missions as required in their very own version of a next jet, and when things really get out of hand, they cross streams or combine powers to summon Captain Planet. If you've somehow never seen the show before, it basically has the vibes of mixing together X-Men the animated series with the Magic School Bus, and just for good measure, we're going to sprinkle on a bit of Power Rangers on top. If you know what to expect, it's a really good time. But let me know in the comments, do you want a new Captain Planet? And did you watch the show growing up? Or are you on the opposite end where you think the show had its time and place and should be left in the past where it belongs? Let the people decide, we shall. Honestly, at this point, I would even settle for them cleaning up the old show and releasing it on Blu-ray, or even 4K if they could pull it off. So as far as I can tell, the property's rights are owned by the animation studio Hanna-Barbera, which is a subsidy of Warner Brothers. I mean, come on WB Animation, do you really hate the Earth that badly you won't make an animated film? For context, just check out this stat here. Since Cap Planet ended back in '96, they haven't been able to get a film made. It's been over 25 years. And from just 2007 alone, WB Animations have made a plethora of DC films, some of which have been straight up amazing, but there's also been a bunch of generic stories in there. Just look at how many there are. Yeah, that's right, 51 films for DC with 2 more on the way, and that's not even including any of the short story animations they created to go along with these releases too. And I'm not against any of these films regardless about how you feel of them. But for the love of God, you're trying to tell me some way, somehow those bastards couldn't slip just one Captain Planet title in there? Cause if so, I ain't buying any of that. The closest thing we've had was the Funny or Die sketches starring none other than, of course, Don Cheadle. They're decent enough sketches, so if you want to see them and haven't, I'll link them in the description for you to enjoy, since it's all we have for the time being. Forever there's been this rumor of a film produced by Leonardo DiCaprio that he's really passionate about having made, but I've heard about it for years. So like the Michael B. Jordan Scarface remake, you shouldn't believe it till you actually see it in production. But then again, Batgirl showed that even then you can't really be sure of its actual release. It's supposedly set to star Glenn Powell, who I'm not terribly familiar with, but he was recently in Top Gun Maverick as the Hangman. Though I want to hear from y'all. Would Glenn make a good Cap, and if not, who are you thinking of? To hell with it, I say let's go full circle and make Tom Cruise finally play Captain Planet, and have him face off against Christian Bale as Captain Pollution. I don't think that they've ever worked together on a project, and a fun Easter egg? Bale's performance in American Psycho was partially based on the energy of Tom during his Getting Hyper on Oprah's couch days. Make it happen, Warner Brothers. The ball's in your court now. As a show of the 90s, I also have to give massive props to the theme song for this. Oh my god, if you've never heard it, go into the description right now after subscribing and click the link. If you're even the slightest fan of 90s cartoon themes, this is one that does not disappoint. Just put it on repeat and vibe away. Before we wrap things up, I have to bring up the fact that as I was making this video and looking at Captain Planet more and more, there were these moments where he starts to almost look evil. There are these literal times where if you just saw him out of the corner of your eye, you might even mistake him for the Joker based off his appearance. But hey, at the end of the day, there's nothing to worry about because he's the good guy, right? Right? This was a series that, although didn't run for an overly long time, it still managed to shine bright enough to leave a mark on lots of people that is still remembered over 25 years later. In its brief history, it touched many forms of media, leaving tons of story-based content to pull from for a potential future project. Those are most of my reasons why I still want a new Captain Planet film, whether it be live action or animated. And to be honest, we need them now more than ever before. So are you with me in welcoming the chance to revisit this universe once more? Or are you a freak of nature that just wants to watch the world burn? Anyways, thanks for watching and be well. Man, if no one remembers Captain Planet, I am screwed.